Sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah. Nick Durst says I can't hear you. Well, hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, guys. We're still trying to figure out some technical details. So if you could just bear with us, we'll figure those out for sure. Um, so like I said, you couldn't hear me because I was muted, but we have a fun show lined up for you guys today. It's just going to be me because Curtis has other obligations he has to attend to right now. So it's just going to be me. But we have a fun show lined up for you guys today. So we're going to be talking about the new Rockers signings, and we're going to be talking about the Rockers schedule and lots of other cool news going on with the Las Vegas Rockers. So we have a really fun show lined up for you guys today. First, before I get started, I wanted to bring up something that I found pretty interesting. For those of you who watch the Super Bowl, which I'm assuming is probably almost everybody, the kicker for the Seahawks, Jason Meyer, some of you may not know this, but he actually is a former arena football player. He now holds the record for most field goals made in a Super Bowl game. And he started out his career with the San Jose SaberCats. I have it pulled up here right on my phone. He started out with the San Jose SaberCats in 2014 and then played for the Arizona Rattlers also in 2014. And he holds numerous NFL records now. So most points scored in a season with no touchdowns, 171, and he set that this season. Highest field goal percentage in a season. He made 100% of his field goals in 2020. That was the COVID year. Kind of a wacky year for sports, and a lot of games are getting canceled, but still nonetheless a really cool record to hold. And most points scored in a single season, including the postseason. That was this year, 206 points. So my point here is that a lot of these players that you're going to be seeing that are going to be on the field with our league, in a few years, or maybe even less than that, you could see them in the NFL. That is a real possibility. I mean, here's a guy in Jason Myers who started out his career at a FCS school, didn't get much attention from the NFL scouts. Of course, went the arena football path, and now he's a Super Bowl star now. So there's many such cases. Kurt Warner, many such cases of players that start out the arena football path, and then you see them playing on Sundays. So I just wanted to mention that, and you guys can keep an eye out for your favorite Rockers players because, of course, we hope that they'll go on to be NFL stars. So let's talk about some of these awesome signings that have been announced. So, of course, you all know about Arvell Nelson. Me and Curtis have talked about him before, but we actually signed another quarterback, Eric Phoenix. He comes to us out of South Carolina State, which is an FCS school. And he was named the 2024 HBCU Player of the Year. HBCU is historically black colleges and universities. And he was named the Player of the Year in 2024 and the 2024 Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference Player of the Year. So he stands at 6'3", and he weighs 210 pounds. So Phoenix comes to us with D1 experience. FCS is kind of a lower level than FCS, but it is D1 nonetheless. So he comes to us with D1 experience, and he's a big arm quarterback. He led his conference with 2,460 passing yards, and he had 20 touchdowns, and that was in 2024. And so it's going to be an interesting thing to see who starts between him and Arvell Nelson. What I'm hoping is that next week I have Coach Hollywood on the program, and maybe I can kind of pick his brain about who he thinks is going to start. I don't know if he's actually going to tell me that information or not, but it'll be interesting to see how he evaluates his quarterback room, because you have two really talented guys. Um, like I already mentioned in previous Rockers episodes, Arvell Nelson is a former Arena Bowl MVP in 2019 with the Washington Valor. And one thing that I didn't actually know that I thought was pretty cool was I interviewed Coach Sia Burley last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, and he's the coach of the Utah Grade Eights. He actually coached. He was on the coaching staff of the Washington Valor. He coached Arvell Nelson that year that he won the Arena Bowl MVP. So a lot of cool connections in this league, and a lot of things that I'm pretty excited about, and things that you should be too. When it comes to a quarterback, obviously, you know, quarterback is probably the most important position on the field in any football game, but particularly arena football, because it's a smaller field and there's less players. So you have 8 to a side instead of 11. And so having a good quarterback is going to be integral to being able to score quickly. And if you can't score quickly in arena football, you're not going to win very many games, because it's fast-paced, there's constant scoring, and, you know, constant action. So having a quarterback that's able to just command the team and command the field like that and be a leader, super important. Super important. And so the next signing that I want to talk about is Damari Jones. He's a wide receiver. He played for the Miami Hurricanes. He's 6'4", 190 pounds, and he also will bring D1 experience to the Rockers offense. So just to talk a little bit about him, let me pull this up on my computer. He's from Leesburg, Florida. He was a 3-star recruit, according to Rivals.com and ESPN. The number 54 ranked wide receiver in his class, and number 92 overall player in that 2014 class that he came out of. So in high school, he helped to lead his team to a state title as a senior, and he had 41 catches and 10 touchdowns in 2011, which would have been his sophomore year in high school. And he was a team captain in both his junior and senior years. Now, here's the thing. So when you look at a guy and when you're evaluating talent, one of the things you evaluate is not just on-field talent, but also leadership abilities. And so when you hear that a guy has been a team captain, that's a huge plus, because it shows that he can lead a team, and it shows that he can unite an offense. And so the fact that he was team captain in his junior and senior years with Miami goes to show that he has leadership ability. And so hopefully that can translate to the Las Vegas Rockers. Joe Brown says, great signings. Yeah, I totally agree. And it kind of all happened more or less at once. So one day I was, you know, just doing my normal Rocker stuff, just trying to find out any news. And it's like the next day, it's like 5 guys were signed. And it's only been going up from there. Like, Coach Hollywood has really been on the grind as far as evaluating talent, trying to sign players. He's putting a team together. He's putting a squad together. And so for Rockers fans, I think you guys are going to be pretty impressed with the on-field product. And I think that it's very possible, just from what I've seen, that we're a playoff team in year one. I really think that that's definitely a logical possibility. You have 2 teams from the American Conference, 2 teams from the European Conference. Only 4 teams make the playoffs. So you have to be top 2 in your conference to qualify for the playoffs. Of course, we have a smaller league, and I'm sure as we grow, the playoffs will expand. But you have to have a pretty good team to be top 2. So, you know, when you evaluate talent, you have to really consider it carefully, because if you're not top 2, you're not going to make the playoffs. And so I think Damari Jones, he comes to us with insight, with leadership, and with on-the-field talent. As a junior at Leesburg High School, he caught 40 passes for 544 yards and 12 touchdowns. And he also played basketball for Leesburg High School, averaging 15 points per game, which is another good point to bring up because having talent at football and having athleticism are not always the same thing. Sometimes they can be different. You look at a guy like Tom Brady, for instance. If you just look at his athleticism, he was never the most athletic guy in the league, but he was more often than not the smartest guy in the field at any one given time. And he was also probably at one given time the hardest worker and the most talented. So athleticism and talent are not always the same thing. They definitely can be, but they're not always the same thing. And so when you see that a guy is athletic, he can play multiple sports, that adds a new dimension to talent. So you can have a guy that knows multiple sports, knows what he's doing, and can execute at a high level in multiple athletic pursuits. So it's very cool to see that he also played basketball and averaged 15 points a game, which is really good for high school. So when he was coming out of high school, he had offers from Arkansas, West Virginia, Wake Forest, and USF. So you have four big-time Power 5 schools, and then one pretty good Group of 5 school, and then of course Miami also. And he chose, of course, Miami. And as a true freshman, 2012, he redshirted. So back in those days, if you redshirted, you were not allowed to play. Recently, it's changed to where you're allowed to play up to 4 games and still retain your red shirt. And now I think they're trying to make it 9 games, which would actually be insane. But back in 2012, you just had to sit out a year. And that's how it's traditionally been for most of college football. If you plan to redshirt, you just sat out a year. But what that says is that he's a guy that's comfortable sharing the spotlight. So you can sit on the bench, you can help your teammates, and you don't have to have all the glory to yourself. So you have a guy here who chose to redshirt his freshman year and help his teammates and just sit on the sideline. And so what that says to me is he's a team player. And so having these guys on the team that are willing to take a back seat and help the team for the greater good of the team, that says to me that you have a strong team, a cohesive bond. So 2013, he played in 4 games, but he did not record any stats, but he did see snaps against FAU, Savannah State, USF, and Virginia. So he played a little bit, but as a freshman, you're still learning the ropes, and he's a redshirt freshman at this point, so he's still learning the ropes. And so Damari Jones, although he didn't record any stats, he did see some snaps on the field. In 2014, as a sophomore, he recorded his first ever catch against Florida A&M for 13 yards, and he saw action against Arkansas State, mostly as a special teams player. And that is all that's listed here on Miami's website. But what I like about this Damari Jones guy is that he comes in here with D1 experience. That's one thing. And then another thing, like I said, he seems like a leader. He seems like a guy who cares about helping out the team, and even if he's not the one getting all the glory. But I do think that this is a guy who has potential to totally have a breakout year and totally kind of be one of the first faces of the league. Because whenever you're first starting a project or of any sort, you need something that really draws people in, and this league is no different. So having a guy that could potentially be the face of the league right away is going to be something that is going to really make our mark in the world of arena football. So it's really cool to see a player like Damari Jones being signed and being getting to be a Rocker. So I'm really excited for that and to watch him. Joe Brown says Coach Hollywood is the man. Indeed he is. Indeed he is. Yeah, I actually did an interview with him. It's probably been at least a month and a half ago. I think that was actually even before he was announced as the Rockers head coach. But I did an interview with him, and yeah, he's a very serious guy, and he's serious about winning. He's he of course he has a big personality. That's why Tom Mitchell gave him the nickname Coach Hollywood. He has that sort of flashy personality, but don't get that confused because he's a serious guy. He's serious about winning. He wants to bring home a championship in the first year to Las Vegas. And one thing that I don't think I mentioned, but that it's important to mention, is that being in Las Vegas, being in the same city that the league headquarters are, we have a major advantage when it comes to the playoffs because the playoffs will take place entirely at our home field. So just having that advantage is going to be incredible. And so if we can make the playoffs in our first year here in this league, I think that there's a decent chance that we could take it all, especially when you consider Coach Hollywood's mentality, the home field advantage, and then also the incredible talent we've already signed. So the next guy that I wanted to talk about, let me pull this up real quick. We have Justin Morgan. He's an offensive lineman, and he's 6'7", huge, tall guy. 6'7". That's like NBA small forward status. That's like he could probably play in the NBA if he wasn't a football player. He's a big guy too, offensive lineman, 345 pounds. And he comes to us out of Stony Brook, which is FCS school. And so it's important in any football context. Offensive linemen are going to be the key foundation to how a team performs and how they succeed. You can have the best quarterback in the world, best running back, everything. None of it matters if you don't have a good offensive line. I'll use Joe Burrow as an example. He's an elite quarterback. Probably top 10 in the league, maybe even top 5 in the league, but he couldn't stay healthy, and that's because the Bengals have a terrible offensive line. He gets hit all the time. He has no time to make passes, and so he spends most of his time injured because he's constantly getting hit. And so when you have a guy with size and strength like Justin Morgan, who's 6'7", 345 pounds, that's a tough guy to get around, especially with how fast-paced arena football is. You think about this. For how fast the NFL is, arena football is like 5 times faster because you get the ball, the quarterback gets the ball, he's throwing it automatically. Throwing it. It's just run and shoot all day down the field. And so to get around a guy that's 6'7", 345 pounds and be able to get to the quarterback that fast, it's hard. It's very difficult. And so even to have a guy with that size and strength, that's going to be a big advantage for the Rockers for sure. Now we have another offensive lineman to talk about. He's also 6'7", so another big, tall guy, and he weighs 340 pounds, and he played for Miami in college. His name is Trey Johnson. Trey Johnson played for Miami in college, and so him and Justin Morgan are going to be integral in protecting the quarterback, whether that be Arvell Nelson or Eric Phoenix, whoever ends up starting. And so just to have two offensive linemen that are that type of size, that's going to be incredible. And now size doesn't always equate to being good at blocking or being good at picking up defensive linemen, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It certainly doesn't hurt. You have two guys 6'7". They're both around 350 pounds. That's definitely not going to be a negative, I would say. And so if you can coach these guys on how to block in an arena football style environment. These are going to be guys that are going to probably develop into, one of the best offensive lines in the IAL. So I know that offensive lines aren't always fun to talk about. It's not always the fun position like receiver, quarterback, running back, but it's important to talk about them because they are the foundation. You can't do anything without a good offensive line. And so these two player signings, incredible, and I love it. Now, the last player signing that I want to talk about is Kawhi Cunningham. He's a linebacker out of Texas A&M. Cunningham stands at 6'4" and weighs 230 pounds, and he adds intensity to the defense. So far, we don't have many defensive players, but Cunningham is going to likely be a leader on the Rockers defense. Just by virtue of the fact he comes from a Power 5 school, SEC, and SEC, for those who watch college football, which I'm sure a lot of you do, the SEC is known for defense. It always has been. It's always been a conference that has been known for defense. So to have a guy that played in the SEC, played defense in the SEC, that adds invaluable experience to the lineup for sure. So let's talk a little bit about Kawhi Cunningham and kind of his story. So in high school, he went to Hamilton High School in Chandler, Arizona. He was a two-time All-Arizona and Division I first-team All-State selection for Arizona. And as a senior, Cunningham made 74 tackles with 19 sacks. 19 sacks is incredible, especially because in high school you play, 10 games? So you're averaging almost 2 sacks a game. That's incredible. 19 sacks in one season is absolutely nuts. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, and he chose Texas A&M over Michigan State, Oregon, USC, Arizona State, and Oklahoma. So you have all these Power 5 schools that wanted him. He's a 4-star recruit. You have all these big-time names like USC, Oregon, Oklahoma that all wanted him. And so what that says to me is this guy has immense talent, incredible talent. And so in 2014, he didn't redshirt, but he was a backup at defensive end. He's that edge rusher type of guy. Like I said, he's a linebacker, but the way the game has evolved, essentially outside linebackers are essentially just edge rushers now. Obviously, depends on the defensive formation. If you're in, for instance, let's say a Tampa 2 formation for defense, the outside linebackers are going to drop back and be more akin to a defensive back. But in a lot of defensive formations, especially like a 3-4 formation, you're going to have the outside linebackers that are essentially going to be just edge rushers. And so you have a guy who's versatile, defensive end, linebacker. He can play both, and he can get to the quarterback or he can drop back in coverage. And with those 74 tackles, they weren't all on the defensive line. I'm sure that a lot of them were when he dropped back into coverage and was able to, pick up a shallow crossing route and tackle the guy for a 2-yard gain before he could go anywhere. So versatility is this guy's strong suit. Kawhi Cunningham is a guy who has a skill set that can translate very well to arena football, because at a faster pace, you need to be versatile. I mean, it's just the honest truth. You need to be versatile when the game is so fast-paced like that. But even though he was a backup, he did contribute to 8 tackles, including 5 solo stops in 12 games that he appeared in. He also had a sack and a half and 2.5 tackles for a loss, and had 3 tackles against Rice that year, which it was a season high for him. And that 2014 Rice game, by the way, Texas A&M versus Rice. Just a side note, that was actually the game that Johnny Manziel was suspended for the first half of. And so it's kind of interesting. I just thought of that. It doesn't really have anything to do with Kawhi Cunningham, but When I saw that, I just, that it was the first game of the season. I remember watching it, and Johnny Manziel was suspended. So I do remember that game actually specifically. So in 2015, as a sophomore, Kuwait Cunningham was one of the most disruptive defensive players coming off the bench. He was once again a backup, but he did see action in all 13 games that Texas A&M played that year. He contributed to 18 tackles and had 10 solo stops. He had 2 sacks. One was an 11-yard sack against, it doesn't say who it was against, but 11-yard sacks. And he also had a fumble recovery that season. He had a total of 3.5 tackles behind the line of scrimmage for a total loss of 15 yards, and he earned the Academic Excellence Award at the annual team banquet. So not only is this guy athletic, he's smart. So when it comes to football, you have guys that are athletic and can do well, but don't necessarily have a high football IQ. Being smart is not something you could just teach. It's something that you either have or you don't. And I'm not saying you can't succeed if you don't have a high football IQ, but what I am saying is that it definitely helps to have the smarts that go with it, for sure. So 2016, as a junior, he appeared in all 13 games, and he had 1 start against South Carolina on October 1st, 2016. He recorded 17 tackles with 1 sack for a loss of 10 yards, and he had a season-high 3 tackles in 4 games versus Prairie View A&M, Tennessee, Alabama, and New Mexico State. And so 2 of those opponents are SEC opponents. So to perform well against other SEC teams shows how talented this guy really is. I don't think people really realize how big the gap in talent is between Group of 5 and Power 5. It's a whole nother level. So when you're competing against Group of 5, obviously there's talented guys, but to perform that well against other SEC schools shows that this guy, he's a dog, for sure. Now, in his senior year, he appeared in 10 games, recorded 4 tackles in QB hurry, and he made 2 tackles against Nicholls State, forced a QB hurry, and registered 1 tackle against Louisiana, and he had a tackle versus New Mexico. So here's a guy who has an illustrious college career, just completely balled out in college, and was overlooked by the NFL. The NFL is unlike many other sports because you think about it, you have roster sizes that are around 50 or so people, but you only have around 22 players that play in a game in the NFL, not including special teams, right? And so half the team isn't even playing. And so to be a guy that can come into arena football, play that 8-on-8 football, and possibly play both sides of the ball, that's going to be just an incredible boost. Now, I was going to go over the roster schedule, but we are running out of time. Next up, we have Coach Hollywood and Commissioner Dan Luss that are going to be talking to you guys. And so I unfortunately have to wrap things up for this podcast, but it's actually probably a good thing because going over the schedule would be better to save for Curtis when he's back. And so I hope you guys tune in next week, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And I hope that you guys are able to hear me and Curtis talk about the schedule because we have a lot to say. And so I appreciate everybody who was watching. I appreciate everybody who was chatting. And with that being said, go Rockers.